Hi, everyone. Welcome to our Facebook Live broadcast. I'm Steve Altishan, Director of Client Partnerships here at Pacific Legal. And today we have high conflict and divorce relationship coach, Barbara LaPointe, to talk about strategies to break the cycle of reaction when divorcing a high conflict personality. Ooh, that's a lot to unpack. So Barbara, before we start in, how are you doing today?
I'm fantastic. Honored to be here with you. Nice to see you, Steve.
Oh, it's nice to see you again, too. Before we just kind of start in with questions, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'd love to. I'm a solution-focused divorce coach with training in NLP and inherited family trauma. I live in beautiful Calgary, Alberta, and I coach women all over the world from a broken state to becoming empowered and whole and complete and really living in their truth, often after very destructive divorces.
I'm really fascinated by this and looking forward to our conversation today. And because it's funny, as attorneys, we hear the term high conflict personality, narcissist in a lot of divorce cases from our clients. But what do these terms really actually mean?
Yeah, it's fun to it's a fun topic because there's a lot of information about it, and it's really something that's also come into the collective consciousness of everyone. Everyone kind of knows now what a narcissist is, and but it's nice to nail it down to what it is. So today we'll mostly be referencing the more extreme cases that show up in family law cases, more extreme narcissists, but keeping in mind always that it's a label and that it's a spectrum. High conflict, let's define that to start. Sound good?
Yeah.
Yeah, because we're noticing high conflict personalities in the world statistically on the rise. Could be from social media, could be from popular culture, could be from a lot of different things, Steve, but they're on the rise. So we know that we're going to meet a high conflict personality, certainly in our lifetime. Some modest statistics from the say that 1 in 25 people are a high conflict personality or HCP. So you're going to run into one in the workplace, at the grocery mart, hopefully not in your family law case, because if you do, they're going to wreak havoc in your family law case. So back to the definition of high conflict, so we can set the stage. High conflict behavior, a high conflict personality has a long and enduring pattern of escalating conflict, creating conflict, getting fueled or liking conflict, rather than an enduring pattern of behavior that resolves conflict or brings to the table constructive conflict resolution. We're not seeing that. So in family law cases, that can mean a long pattern of escalating conflict, which is costly emotionally and costly financially.
Oh, I hear you on that one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So narcissist, because I know you use the term narcissist a lot, or not a lot, but some. Is that necessarily a high conflict person, or is that another personality to deal with?
Yeah, that's like a tricky rabbit hole to go down, because I'm not a lawyer and I'm not a psychologist, but we can all kind of agree that they're on a basic level, because we see them and experience them, that there are narcissists out there. There's all kinds of different kinds of narcissists, but there's some overarching qualities of narcissists, which are high conflict personalities, that we can probably likely all agree on. A lot of the information I'm going to be bringing to our conversation today, Steve, is from the High Conflict Institute in Southern California, which to me is the gold standard of understanding these HCPs or high conflict personalities, of understanding the narcissist, which the High Conflict Institute founder Bill Eddy calls the arrogant players of divorce, and they are.
Yeah.
These overarching qualities of narcissists and HCPs are identifiable. They're red flags, and we can all agree on those. We maybe outline them if you'd like.
So in a divorce, how do these personalities sort of play out? How does they manifest itself? And what are the dangers of having one of them in a divorce?
Yeah, that's the thing that probably most people don't realize, that they're heading for this high impact collision, because oftentimes as women will feel like things are going to get better once we start, I decide and I file for divorce, and things are going to get better for me. But with narcissists, they get worse. They get far worse in post-legal abuse, and the conflict is actually intensified. One fun study that was done is that there was a measurement of narcissist heart rate during conflict, and their heart rate actually slows down because they enjoy it. It doesn't, like if I was in conflict or our heart rate would speed up, our nervous system would kick into gear, we go into fight or flight, but their heart rate actually slows down. So it's a place of comfort for them, it fuels them in a different way than it would fuel us. In family, isn't that interesting?
That is really interesting.
And it kind of makes the playing field unfair from the beginning, in my view, because they are already skilled players. They're already the skilled, arrogant players of divorce. And divorce doesn't turn into what Stephen R. Covey would describe as like a win-win. It becomes win, lose, anger, revenge. And that's part of one traits that all narcissists have, which is the all or none thinking.
Yeah. Imagine the kids, if there are kids in a particular divorce case, they have to get caught up in this somehow.
One thing that I always find surprising, it is a little bit commonplace for family law professionals and many professionals to say, well, the kids don't need to hear about that, and we don't speak about that. But when you look at families as a system, family tree, a system of love, the orders of love, of energy, a connectedness, I mean, it seems silly to me that their children aren't going to feel it, and they are impacted. They're deeply, deeply impacted, because for the narcissist who's arrogant, lacks empathy, to me, that's the most important quality, lacks empathy for their children. Children are viewed as just an extension of themselves. Often narcissists will take credit for work that's not their own, including parenting work. Narcissists cannot co-parent. So that is a big negative impact on kids and stressed out moms.
Yeah.
So sometimes in social media, we hear counter-parenting, and I would almost call it conflict parenting. So imagine doing conflict parenting through time. That is very unpleasant and has impacts that will last with children for who knows how long, for years, for generations.
Yeah, I imagine the woman who is experiencing this and trying to co-parent, this doesn't end when the divorce decree is signed. I mean, there's got to be, throughout, their whole lives, maybe a negative impact that can occur.
Yeah, I mean, I would say if you really want to do a positive shift, divorcing a narcissist or dealing with an HCP through time, especially in family law, which is inherently, there's so many beautiful collaborative law offices, but sometimes it's inherently adversarial. It's really a way to lean into your humanity, to learn strategies, because you can only strategies to communicate, because at the end of the day, you can only create healing and renewing patterns for yourself. You can only focus on transforming yourself. So as a more real life example, I had to learn new ways to communicate with my high conflict ex and his high conflict lawyer.
That's a combination, let me tell you.
And it's really statistically, and it's mentioned at the High Conflict Institute of Southern California that this is evidence-based. It's not a hyperbole. It's not saying, oh, my ex got a high conflict lawyer. I mean, more like attracts like. And if you like conflict, you're going to find a high conflict lawyer, and that kind of just adds fuel to a fire.
Oh my gosh. So what can women do? I mean, and how can they heal, like you're saying, and how can they take their power back?
Oh, well, it's such a profound question. Thank you for that question, Steve. I mean, it's a journey because the narcissist will respond to conflict in a family law case in a power assertive way. So no win-win, no collaboration, unflexible thinking, all or nothing thinking. So that's that black and white thinking, anger, revenge, all or nothing thinking makes it really hard to come to the table and mediate out an agreement where everybody wins. All or nothing thinking is like, hi, I'd like to go on a trip to Hawaii with my daughter. And they say, sure, I'd like to remove all your custodial rights. That's something I personally went through over and over and over again for now I'm approaching over 8 years, right?
Yep. So
this kind of chips away, of course, at a person's self-esteem, confidence, nervous system, emotional regulation is affected. And hey, come on, we're already a little vulnerable when we go to file for divorce anyways, wouldn't you agree?
Yeah. Yep, that's exactly right.
And that's why I'm passionate about helping women with that receive these injuries of narcissistic abuse, because it's through time, like to be abused through time. 5 years, 3 years, 7 years is a long time. So the call to healing is quite a profound journey. But we can begin with working on our communication strategies and recognizing that these narcs come to the table with high conflict energy, conflict languaging, and patterns that they've had their entire life. Interesting side note that you'll love, Steve, is that they often don't change. So almost never, these personalities really don't change. And even if they go to counseling or therapy, first of all, they probably wouldn't because they're arrogant. And so they don't think anything's wrong with them. They're also persuasive blame shifters. Oh, that's your fault. No, I won't bring a solution. No, that's on you. Like they're just busy creating problems. So they're not ones to go, I think I'll head down and book in for some cognitive behavioral therapy, right? They're not going to do that. Even if they did, it would take statistically 5 years of comprehensive therapy before we would begin to see minor successful changes in their behavioral patterns. So if you're waiting for them to change, they can't. You have to change.
Yep, that's what I was just thinking, and where you're heading is that you get a lot of clients as lawyers who's the client is trying to do their best and they have a high conflict person out there and they just are continually astounded, surprised, can't believe that a person acts this way. And that's why I kind of liked when you said, start to recognize it. So when it's no longer a surprise to you, I think that it's kind of a first way to start, getting some of these skills. And so how, what are some of the skills, folks need when dealing with a high conflict personality?
Yeah, thank you for that relevant and insightful question. I mean, in a relationship where you don't have kids or you're not involved in a family law case, often people say, well, go gray rock, just never have contact with them again. And oftentimes we can't do that if we're in a family law case or we have children with them. That's not possible. So one strategy that I've used myself for many years, and women can perfect this through time and master it, is bringing in the BIF strategy, BIF. And that's an acronym, Steve, for creating responses that are brief, informative, firm, and friendly. So let's back up. If narcissists are using languaging that's attacking, insulting, demeaning, not based in conflict resolution, no win-wins, lies, manipulative, how do you feel? How would you feel?
Terrible. I mean, you get to where you don't know what to do a lot. You know, you're like, what do? I strike back harder. And it sounds like what you're saying is that just feeds them.
Exactly. You're reading my mind, because it's like this, like it feeds them, and it feeds them. It's a narcissistic supply, and it just keeps the loop going. It keeps the chain of reaction going, and it keeps the conflict going. And we might not even be conscious of that. We might be thinking we want this conflict to end, but the other person doesn't want the conflict to end. So someone might say, well, why don't you just walk away? Well, you can't walk away from these people, and you can't walk away from family law cases. So you have to go through the storm to get out. And one of the first things I would say was changing your communication strategies to BIF strategies: brief, informative, firm, and friendly. When we're feeling attacked, when we're taking it personally, when we feel wounded, when we feel like it's affecting our identity, when the lies, insults hurt, the manipulation is working. And sidebar, they're really good at, again, manipulating professionals, because a lot of judges, oftentimes judges, and this is changing, and family lawyers don't have the training for recognizing sociopaths, narcissists, high conflict people. Some lawyers also, though, get energized by them because it's easy to win their case, because oftentimes, ironically, narcissists are charming, charismatic, well put together, operate well under conflict or pressure.
Yeah.
So
I got a question.
You see the perfect storm here.
Oh, the BIF thing. I really like that. So a lot of stuff now is done by email, obviously, especially co-parenting issues, and even in the divorce. And so I'm assuming that, or maybe tell me if this is right, I fire back an email, or I get a terrible email, just flaming email, and I start to write something back. How do I not hit the button?
Yeah. So this is like the ultimate call to regulating your own emotions, because you're emotionally charged, and it's triggering. You're emotionally triggered. And the trick is not to take it personally and see for what it is. Because the narcissist would do this to his ex-wife or his girlfriend or his mother, even if the mother and the girlfriend were different people. That is to say, they would do it to anyone, any person. It's not personal. So using this neutral, emotionally decharged language of a BIF strategy is really an empowerment, in my view, for women, because you can use them anywhere. And it's not saying, well, Steve, this isn't true. That's not true. How could you say this? Why are you lying? Why are you saying I'm an unfit parent? Why won't you let our daughter go to here? It's just like editing it down to brief, informative, firm, and friendly. And the trick to that is waiting 24 hours, 48 hours if you can, before you put your fingers on the keyboard.
Yeah, no, I love that. It's kind of like you respond, you don't react.
Yeah. And so it's self-discipline. It's a mastery through time. And also, you know, if you have a coach, a New Ways for Families coach, or someone you trust, you can work on it, practice these New Ways for Families statements, these BIF strategies, until you perfect it, because you'll have to use it always. And I always like to add on as a little extra, if you can find a lawyer, family lawyer, that also uses BIF strategies, all the better. The sooner you implement these strategies, the better your outcomes are moving forward.
And that's funny you say that. I mean, our attorneys here, one of their sort of mantras is not just for themselves, but for their clients is, you know, don't fire back an email. And even if you type one that's, you know, what you want to say, sit on and
Yeah. Send it to your divorce coach, draft it, print it out, mail it to, you know, the cat down the street, but don't hit that send button. And that, you know, a lot of times narcissists most often are coupled with empathetic people, emotional people, soulful people, because they lack empathy. So they've got to get their NERC supply from somewhere. So it is an emotional journey, but it's learning how to ground yourself and regulate yourself so that those reactive emotions aren't driving your behaviors through time.
Right. It's kind of like, you know, in football, the offense tries to dupe you into maybe, you know, rushing too fast, or here's an opening, go get it, go get the quarterback. But they really know that's going to come, and they take advantage of that and score a touchdown. And this is sort of that same thing. They're trying to almost trick you into this because they know that they are the people on top.
Yeah, and they're just loving it. They're just pushing your buttons, triggering you. They know your trigger points. You're traumatized already. You're getting then re-traumatized when they get that touchdown. And then you recreate the loop and make the same mistakes over and over again. Emotionally, we call that like a limbic loop, where we're just emotionally reacting until we can step back and start to understand what's going on, but coming into our own power, seeking out the support of a divorce coach, a counselor, a psychologist, becoming more mindful rather than leaking our energy out to these conflicts that draw us in, that trigger us, that trick us. If we can learn these skills of mindfulness, communication strategy of BIF, making effective communication strategies, like saying, I request this and I request a response within 48 hours, putting that timeline on it and not getting drawn in. So it comes down to emotional regulation ourselves.
Right. So this is a skill. I mean, like you're saying, this isn't just I'm going to make a promise to myself to do it. This is a learned skill.
It is a learned skill, and that's hopeful because everyone can learn it. And the sooner you understand that, especially in family law cases, it will save you so much energy, so much time, so much money, and you'll get better outcomes in terms of court orders, because the narcissist is really good at eroding your credibility to the point where you might start, in common culture, we call it gaslighting.
Yeah.
Right. And we might start questioning ourselves. Am I a narcissist? Am I a bad parent? Right. And so you've got to rebuild and reinvest in your own self-esteem bank, in your own energies, in yourself. Bring the focus back to yourself, so that you're playing the art of peace, not the art of war.
Right. Yeah. That's a great line. The importance of like in these situations, a coach. I'm really glad you brought that up, and that kind of leads to, you know, what you do is help people who do this. And I know that when we had talked to interchange stuff, and you talked about this, was it New Ways for Families methodology? Is that kind of one of the systems that you can use, or what is that?
Yeah, well, New Ways for Families is from a program for families, parents going through divorce, that teaches you new ways for dealing with these old problems of high conflict personalities. So we work through the BIF strategy, and you can practice that with me as your coach until you perfect it. Um, it's teaching you all the red flags, helping you to identify, because oftentimes when we have a high conflict personality in our lives, we don't just have one. We either go out and attract another one or engage with another one, or we have them in our history, we have them in our family tree, right? So it helps us to understand in a more comprehensive way how we can be solution focused with these folks that create conflict for fun.
Yep. Yeah. I love the idea of being able to recognize a red flag, because the BIF is about responding, but a lot of times it feels like people don't even recognize that this is a red flag that they're getting themselves into.
Yeah, that's the most powerful thing. If we can recognize the red flags and avoid ever meeting one, because the easiest way is when you see a narcissist in the workplace or in divorce is to slowly back away once you recognize the red flags of the personality, and not allow yourself to get in a position of vulnerability where they, as Bill Eddy would say, put a target on your back, and blame you, create a smear campaign about you, drive your family law bills up, 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 emotionally damage you, victimize you, right? So you've got to remove the target from your back and get back into your power. And that's a process through time, but a coach can really help you. New Ways for Families is phenomenal. High Conflict Institute, phenomenal, relevant resource. But you need the emotional support that, because you don't want to go into your family lawyer and just start crying or complaining. You want to go in there collected and regulated.
I love that. I love that. And you talk about this. You talk about emotional, spiritual healing, personal empowerment, and you get that from your history. I know you wrote a book about all this and about your kind of journey. Do you mind telling us a little bit about maybe your story and how this weaves into what we're talking about today?
Yeah, I'd love to. So I'm the heroine of my own story. I went through a high conflict divorce for over 5 years that escalated into a high conflict custody battle. My ex-spouse has spent about $30,000 a month trying to smear campaign me through affidavits, filed to have all my parenting rights removed, including religion, custody, parenting time for my daughter. This all with a background of me being a full-time stay-at-home mom, and when I was a teacher for vulnerable children. So it was really like all or nothing thinking. It was really expensive. A lot of times I didn't even have money for our lives because it was going to sustain my family law defense. And it was shocking. It was shell-shocking. I felt victimized. I felt re-victimized. I felt broke inside and out. It was awful. I didn't even know what a narcissist was until I read Bill Eddy's book, 5 Personalities That Can Ruin Your Life. And that is a groundbreaking book that changed my life. And it allowed me to start saying, okay, his personality isn't going to change. How can I stop supplying narcissistic supply? How can I use the BIF strategy? And that started a lasting transformation for me. That's still going on. The healing, renewing cycles never stop. But through time, I did write an ebook called Erased by a Narcissist, One Woman's Journey to Divorcing a High Conflict Personality. And it's packed full of tips to save you time on the minefields that come up when you deal with individuals that love to create conflict instead of resolving conflict.
Yeah. Oh, I love this. I love this. So we're about to end this because unfortunately 30 minutes just ran by. I would love you to let people know how they can get your book. And since you are a like you said, a relationship divorce coach, how they can get a hold of you if they would like to talk about using your services.
Thanks, Steve. Well, barbarathepointe.com has a lot of free resources and free downloadable PDFs about mindfulness, healing, the free ebook about narcissism. So I'd go there. I do really fun, helpful healing videos on TikTok, and I have a YouTube channel as well. So I'm very active on social media, and I answer people's questions in real time.
I love it. Well, thank you again so much for being here, bringing really a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge to talk about dealing with high conflict personalities, narcissists, all of those kinds of just destructive states when you're trying to go through a divorce, and, you know, kind of breaking that cycle of reaction and victimhood, you know, and that's what you're bringing to us. And I want to thank you very much for doing that today.
Thank you, Steve. I think it's a relevant topic, and I enjoyed our time.
Oh, I did too. Absolutely. And I'd like to tell everyone listening that if you have any questions on this, you can post it here and we can get you connected with Barbara. And Barbara has given you her ways to connect with her as well. Feel free just as well. So until next time, everyone, stay safe, stay happy, and be well.
Thanks, Steve.